Awesome. I want to make sure that we have all of this information to share afterwards. But thank you so much for introduction, Isabel. Grace, if you are so inclined to begin also to give us kind of your background and how you landed your current role here at Autodesk.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I do have a computer science background. I am Brazilian from Brasilia, where I grew up, and I had my degree there. I'm working in a tech industry for about 11 years only in US. And 5.5 of those years were here at Autodesk. I am at Denver Hub, as I mentioned, and working with the software management group as an LC exec that I move positions a few times within the company. And I guess I can talk about there more later on the upcoming questions that we're going to have here. So my story is a little different than normal career-wise.
Love that. Love that. We want to hear more about those kind of like abnormal, not traditional paths to tech, but we'll get into that later on. But last but not least, Esteban, we'd love to hear from you as far as like your role and just again, how did you land your role right now at Autodesk?
Yeah, my current role, it's been a progression. I didn't actually start in this type of role, which is technical sales. Really, the intention of technical sales is to be a former customer to help our current future customers figure out what they might need and how we can help them achieve whatever goal they may have through the technology that we offer, specifically our teams in construction. I don't come from a technical background. I don't come from a sales background. I'm originally a civil engineer, and I worked in construction for most of my career. And I did my degrees in Costa Rica, came to the United States to continue school, and then was hired by a large general contractor. Construction is very tough and very tiring, many hours of work, a lot of levels of stress. And but I very much enjoyed adopting technology to make it less stressful and less difficult for me, for my coworkers on these job sites. And through that, Autodesk reached out and said, how would you like to do that you like, but not just for your company, for a lot of companies? And so I was very excited to join about 6 years ago. And in these last 6 years, it's taking me to manage our global technical sales teams, specifically in the construction technology.
Well, we are also happy to have you here as part of the team as an ally. So thank you so much for sharing that. Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to just highlight again, Autodesk just being a global software company with almost 13 plus employees, it's a large corporation, but it's amazing to see how they're changing the world and how we manage design and how technology is incorporated within the span of product design, manufacturing, media, entertainment. They're pretty much all over the place, right? So it's just really nice to have visibility of Latinos today speaking on their own journeys as far as we highlighting today's Latinx Heritage Month event. But also too, I think it's super important to recognize that large corporations like Autodesk and how they're being innovators within this, within the tech industry. I would like to hear, from any of you all who would like to answer this question, like, as we are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month within Autodesk, how have you been able to feel the inclusivity of your culture within the organization? And can you talk a little bit more about what you're most proud of just being a Latino within Autodesk as well?
So I can speak to that. I am very proud Brazilian, right? Proud of my beautiful people and country and the wonderful food, music, natural beauty and everything. We're a very welcome nation, right? So everything makes me so proud. We do have people from all over roots there influencing our culture, religion, food, and traditions. And every corner is a different corner in Brazil, and that's what makes a very special country, right? We do have problems like the whole, world when we still like third world countries with corruption, government, education, social equality, and all of that. We're very happy people like all that, and culture is right. We joke about ourselves, trying to make the burden a little lighter, but it's always looking for a better day. So I think we kind of just keep swimming, aiming for the best life always. I do see Autodesk, it has a very great opportunities for diversity, right? We do have a lot of groups within Autodesk and networks linked to the Pride community, the Asian community, the Black community, and they're always trying to bring everybody together as a common ground to make sure we all welcome and we're part of this, you know, diverse world that Autodesk provides to us. And it's so true and so incredible. I came from a different company before that did not have this type of a culture there, and it makes our daily basis, you know, daily work and everything that you have to deal with much easier in a way that you can fight your lies, that you can collaborate with people, that you can feel more of a normal and not in a ways being judged because you have an accent or because you don't speak well or anything like that. I feel very welcome to this world, and I just love Autodesk and all the aspects and everything. So.
I love that a lot, and I love how you mentioned kind of the embracing of, you know, the diversity within either, you know, how you identify within your race, your culture, sexuality, right? And also too, just like not feeling, you know, that sense of like shame or embarrassment, right? Like owning the fact that whoever you are, it's accepted within Autodesk, which is really important because, right, in this day and age, inclusivity is something that everywhere we are looking for. So it's nice to hear that Autodesk embraces that. We'll love to hear from you, Esteban, too. Like how would you say you feel most proud of being Latino, but also too, just in general, how you've been able to embrace your Latinidad at Autodesk?
Sure. I'm really, I mean, I don't want to repeat what Chris said, but it is a very welcoming company. So it is very easy to feel like you fit in. The company does an amazing job of making diversity normal. You know, to the point where because of the normality, you feel that it's special, if that makes sense. And so very welcoming company. I enjoy all, you know, one of the great things about Autodesk is that it is also a global company. So you get to not only see perspectives of diversity in the office that you work in, even in the country that you work in, you get to meet people from all over the world. And at times you get to travel to those places, you get to see that culture, you get to meet those people. So that is really, really great. And for me, I am just like anybody from Latin America, just like Chris, I'm incredibly proud of Costa Rica and our nature and our culture, and Brazilian food is probably better than Costa Rican food, but you know, I like our food too. And so having the chance to also share my culture and where I come from, and we have an office in Costa Rica as well, and hearing about and seeing Costa Ricans, because I came to the States and before that existed, didn't get a chance to be part of that office. And when I see them and I see them growing inside of our company as well, it's really great to hear that experience and share it with people.
Absolutely. I'm sure that, you know, just being able to see that global expansion is mesmerizing, especially in Latin America. I know you've had a couple of orgs here so far, has been expanding within like countries within Latin America. And it's beautiful to see that too, right? Because to your point, a lot of people who were, you know, who have been in the companies for 10 plus years, it's like almost like a dream come true to be able to expand to that much global scale.
Yes.
To you, Isabel, I want to open the floor to you to kind of add in some of your comments too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but you know, Chris and Esteban put it so well. Like Autodesk really is such an amazing place for diversity and inclusivity, right? Like I think this has become kind of a word that many tech companies throw around just to get recruiting and get people at the door. But Autodesk, I actually believe that it puts a lot of resources behind it to support a lot of the diversity groups, right? So we have, as Chris was mentioning, we have, you know, every minority has like kind of their own groups, and there's a lot of development programs that they, you know, put together to make sure that this diversity groups also have the opportunities for leadership opportunities, right? To give them, more opportunities for to visibility across the organization. So I think that's, for me, it's you can see it, right? Like a lot of the people that are, especially from outside of the US, we have been here for years and years, like 10 plus years, right? Which in a tech company is unseen, right? So you kind of create your own family here because you've been working with your colleagues for so long, right? People don't want to leave Autodesk for that. And in terms of what I'm proud of, I think everything, right? All the great stereotypes, like, we're funny, we create community easily, we can like lighten the room, right? I think one thing that I've been able to do in my jobs is like when the conversation started being a little tense, I can just bring this humor into the room and kind of laugh of this awkward situation is happening. And, it just kind of brings lightens the mood a little bit more. So I think to Chris's point, it was like the ability for us to smile even when there's so many challenges, right? So that's on my end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can relate to that too. I know here in our team I led, we're very, very open to, working together, but also too when troubles come around, figuring it out together, but also too being a little lighthearted about it, right? Understanding that we'll find a way regardless of what happens, and it's okay for us to just like laugh at the moment and find the joy in what we're having. It's part of just being Latino, right? We just find a way regardless of where we are in life, and I really do enjoy that. It's one of my pride too here. But also too in the chat, if you don't mind, Chris, Elizabeth, and also Esteban, please add like some really good recommendations for food. I know you kind of touched on the beauty of food within Latin America. Myself being a foodie, I always welcome those suggestions too. So please do so. I will find my way here in Chicago to find those restaurants and find some of those foods for sure. I do want to kind of like jump to the next question that, I know we have an order here, but you all touched on something that was really important, and that's the importance of just inclusivity and having that sense of like family and support system, which kind of alludes to like mentorship, I would say. And I would love to ask a question to you, Isabel, and also to all of you, of course. But what would be in your perspective, what is important to your career trajectory as of now, right? To both you and Chris, right? How can you touch upon a story related to like the importance of having somebody like a mentor or an ally that has helped you kind of get to where you are in your career?
Sure. I've had so many allies along the way, and I think my first ally was definitely my mom, right? Like she was the first one that worked so hard to give me an education and being able to send me to the US, right? Is still my biggest ally, right? But more than that, I think, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, I've found these incredible mentors and women in leadership roles at Autodesk that have been able to like help me out when, in the last 2 years, I've got several promotions, and every time I get one, I get this like terrible panic attack when like my imposter syndrome gets imposter syndrome, right? And then I'm like doubting everything that I'm doing. And it seems so important to have that ally to be able to be there with you and to like help you, right? When you have those moments of doubt, and to help you understand like you're there because you work for it, right? And especially in those leadership roles, right? There are the people that are going to be able to advocate for you, right? Because as women, especially, right, like we have this tendency of not wanting to show off or the woodwork that we do. So it's important to find that advocate, that, leadership, that leader or that ally that is going to be able to, speak out of your work and, kind of help you find those doors and that visibility that you need, especially in a big corporation.
And adding to that, right? During my career, which was not that long, I found a few people who challenged, supported, inspired me, from mentors to peers to friends to sponsors. My life as Autodesk, it's not that long ago. It's just 5 years, and my total professional career is not that long either, for other reasons. But so as far as what it was a story that was a key in my career was, so last year I was chosen by one of my peers and our leadership, the directors, to be part of a program that we have that's very interesting inside of my organization that's called Growth, Possibility, and Success. So during that program, I was exposed to monthly meetings with our leadership with different topics, among those several group mentoring sessions that we've learned their take on strategic or in career development, on communication skills. So it was very interesting because it was during a whole year, and every single month it was a different topic. But what interesting was, it was just to see their point of view on that, being in such a high quote unquote level inside of Autodesk, right? They took the time to teach me and this group all the steps that they walk through during their careers on those specific topics. With that as well, we're able to access external trainings and coachings, and we had a lot of business challenges to work with, and there was a lot of growth this whole year for everybody that was chosen to be part of that. So, and that goes with the sponsorship, quote unquote, part of the allies, right? That came with everything. And like everything that Autodesk does, and for us, I'm just very proud and very honored to be part of that, and very privileged as well, with all the opportunities for personal and professional growth that I obtained during this year. And as well, in a way, becoming like an ambassador of the Autodesk values that's being so present throughout that year, right? And the main of communications throughout, either inside of my team or outside of our team when we collaborate with different industries within Autodesk and different roles as well. So very interesting story, and I feel very privileged to be part of it.
No, that's amazing, and congratulations for taking a part of that amazing program. It sounds like Autodesk is really invested in trying to uplift their employees and empower them to success. But we'll get to that as well in our conversation. But I do want to also just highlight that you both talked a lot about different forms of allyship, which is what I really love, because here at Latinas in Tech, we actually had a couple months ago a full campaign related to allyship. And this relates back to kind of the importance of creating awareness of what allyship means, right? Oftentimes we think of our male counterparts as allies, which is still really important. We have Esteban here, which, I'm going to ask you a question really shortly. But I do think it's important to highlight that allies come in all shapes and forms, right? They can be as far as like your mother, for instance, somebody who was from the get-go was there to support you throughout your career, empowering you, providing you some sort of resource to elevate, however so possible, right? Or even just like with you, Chris, within your mentorship program, and finding people who are sponsoring you. That word sponsorship is so important in allyship too, because right, you not only want somebody in your career who can help you get advice and get through those difficult moments, but somebody who can vouch in you in those moments where you're not in the room is super important and crucial. So kudos to you both for just talking on that. But for you, Esteban, I would love to hear from you as far as just you being an ally to Latinas within tech, right? And being part of this amazing panel. Can you talk a little bit more about how you've been able to support women in the tech industry, but most importantly, if you have a story of how you show up as an ally within the industry itself?
Sure. No, that's a great question. It has varied throughout my career of how I've tried, and I think it starts with really consciously trying to be allies to people in general. And I'm a Latino, so not that I say I have a preference, but I love being able to help other Latinos as well. And I think it started specifically at Autodesk. It started in my coworkers, and when I was able to really get involved with LATAM and the LATAM market in our LATAM offices, at times, the people here in the States, it's like, oh, that's where the main office is, and that's where everything is really happening, and showing them that it's not, that our markets are important in Latin America, and in each specific country, that the expansion of what we can do for both our countries and culture through our markets is incredibly important. So I've tried to spend a lot of time there and helping and coaching our teams in LATAM. But to Isabella's point and to Chris's point, like it for me, being an ally to women in tech specifically started with just being an ally to women. My mom taught me that. My mom was the first one to instill in me the value that we all have. She is incredibly hardworking. She was both a mom and worked towards educating herself and growing herself and becoming. She's now a paralegal, and so I learned that from her. I still hear my mom in the back of my head when saying, "Hey, remember to," and I'm. I have an incredible partner that I admire very, very much. My wife, she is a female in tech. She works for Intel and manages teams there as well. So I have an example of somebody that I'm always partnering with. When I have a problem, I go to her. When she has a problem, she comes to me, and we work together through that. My mentor at Autodesk is a woman as well. She's an incredible salesperson that I admire the way she creates relationships with people and builds those relationships. So when you were mentioning allies and in general, there was something, I'll try and be quick so that I don't take up too much time, but there was an event like this that my wife attended through Intel, where there was an executive from I think it was IBM, and she talked about a concept of networking currency. And networking currency is, as you build your brand by being good at your job, that is a type of currency, right? Overperformance is currency. What we don't realize is that over time, overperformance may, instead of it being $1, it is worth $1.50 when you're very good. Over time, that becomes expectation around you. The people expect that from you. So that $1.50 goes back to $1. But you're building champions and mentors around you allow for your currency to continue to grow and grow and grow more than just the baseline of being very good. And I took that to heart. And so she talked about having a mentor and having a champion. A mentor is somebody that helps you grow, that you can complain to, that you can troubleshoot with, but building champions are people that end up that see your good work, but are the ones that are in behind those closed doors that you don't have access to, that when an opportunity comes up, they say, well, what about Isabel? What about Chris? They can do that. And so building that network around you, of you being a resource for others and others being a resource for you, not because just I want to get ahead, but because you truly want to help people. I think that's what has allowed me and helped me through my career. It's me becoming a resource for others allowed others to become a resource for me.
That's so well said. And I love the idea of creating champions. I've never heard that term before used that way. And I love that idea because it is so true, right? It is an investment that you're putting into that can create kind of what, like compound wealth over time, right? If we're thinking in that terms, right? You're continuously building your network in a way that will live beyond you, right? Because as you mentioned, right, when you live by that example, people begin to expect that from you, and right, that's invaluable in so many ways. And I think that also touches a little bit more on the question I have for all of you, really, which I love so much about your organization in general, and this idea or principle of like growth mindset, which I think you've all kind of touched a little bit upon, at least spoken a little bit in a panel discussion. But I really would love to hear, and to that same point, Esteban, too, as far as like growing your network and analyzing how you can optimize from those challenges that you've encountered to create, new mentors or to find a sponsor, right? As far as growth mindset goes, how does a growth mindset help you in your day-to-day in your career to keep it going within the constant change? As we know within the tech industry, it's continuously evolving, right? So how have you been able to apply that growth mindset to elevate in your career, but also to find champions, right? Or to create a strong network? Open to anyone who would like to answer this one.
I can start. I guess for growth mindset, and as you said, like especially in my field, like things move so fast, and so what I try to do is like every year I join like a course, an intensive course, and I try to do it outside Autodesk. And we're pretty lucky that we have, budget that the company trying to invest in us and in our career growth. So what I try to look is for, a vendor or like a company or a vendor or a course that I know that my peers in the tech industry are going to be there, right? And the idea, as we were talking about, is like creating that network and just kind of learning about what other people's challenges are. And like sometimes when you have a challenge in your work and your company, you feel so alone. And like, it's nice to be able to vent or to talk to someone else and understand how they face those challenges, or that those challenges actually happen in many other organizations. And it's also to the point that we're saying, like creating that network, right? Because you never know, right? Layoffs happen. I've been in that situation, right? And where, I've been able to kind of knock those doors and be like, we took this course together like 6 months ago and we were peers. Like, wouldn't you be able to help me push this resume through, right? Or they will like find you, and if you're good at your job, they will maybe come and ask you like, do you want to work for me? So that's some sort of the things that I do. Another one that is easy is like, we also, as I said, we're pretty lucky. We have this many unlimited resources for creating our career path, and you get what you put, therefore you put in, right? And some of the things we do is like LinkedIn learning. So I think LinkedIn does a really good job about kind of advising you and telling you like, these are the courses you should take, based on your career profile. This is what people in the industry are doing, right? So Fridays are like our focus Friday, is the day that we do focus work, but also like work in our career development. And that's the day that I spend a lot of time like watching some bite-sized videos that is like, quick knowledge that you can apply in your day-to-day. And I think that is just a quick way to keep kind of updated on what is happening in the world, like in the tech world.
Absolutely agree. And I think it's super important to highlight too, leveraging your network is so important and oftentimes under overlooked, I would say, right? Is right when you begin to grow that network, it's important to leverage that network too to help you elevate. And that's part of that growth mindset too, is learning how to be resourceful with what you have. I do want to turn this question to Chris too, because I know you touched a little bit about your experience within your program that you were in. Was there anything that you learned that was valuable to this whole growth mindset that you would like to share with any of our members here?
Yes, I learned to be on top of my development, right? Sometimes we know what it needs to be done, but we don't really pay attention on that. So just be on top on your development. Make sure your goals are there, at least for you to see it, and then go back sometimes and take a look and say, oh, okay, I have to, follow up on this, or I have to keep growing on that, and invest your time on knowledge and everything. We are fortunate enough, like Isabel mentioned, we do have all the classes there offered in LinkedIn, as well as within Autodesk. We are fortunate enough to have a platform with a lot of knowledge that is offered, either for long courses or for quick size bite lessons, or articles or anything like that. So I do feel that it's very important, because we all talk about time, right? So lacking of time, do I invest in myself? Do I go back to my work and be proactive and make sure everything is within the deadlines, or do I invest myself a little bit? So therefore, those bite sizes, those little quick videos and articles that is at our disposal here Autodesk usually helps a lot to grow a little bit and to be on top of everything, or to understand how you set up your goals, how you're gonna make sure you are accounting for it, right? And just be courage, be courage, be proactive about what your industry is going through. Stay on top of all the innovations at Autodesk. This happens like in the blink of eye. It's what you need to continue to grow, besides everything that you're going to invest on yourself, and make sure you're always moving forward, right?
I think I wanted to add one thing, and I think Chris said this, is like the way you leverage your sponsors too. And like, once you find that network, like I think sometimes we're like, okay, I have a sponsor, okay, help me find the way, right? But I think like being able to come prepare with goals and very quick, like you need to be very clear what you need to do, because they're not going to figure it out for you, right? So, once you get into those programs, it's important to just like create this career path. This is what I do. And then when you go to have your sponsors, like, this is how I can leverage you, and like kind of telling them what you need from them, because those opportunities are very rare, right, to get into those programs. So when you have them, or when you find that person, like just make sure that you're prepared and don't waste that opportunity.
Juana, the only thing I would add to Isabel that she just said is, I always think about this because I had a boss that she told me this once. She said, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing, right? Put yourself in uncomfortable situations of growth, and it's not fun to do it, but at the end of it, you look back and you go, oh, I'm better than I was before, right? And that goes to networking, that goes to talking to people. My wife sent me a message once of a picture of her CEO sitting in the cafeteria room of where they were eating, and I said, go say hi.
Oh, you're on mute. We missed it.
Oh, sorry, can you hear
No
me?
worries. Yes,
With the last part, where did I go on mute?
you told her to go say hi.
Oh, I said go say hi, and she said, oh, no, like, what, it's the CEO, I'm not gonna. And I just kept remembering the advice that my mentor that I mentioned before, that she had given me, and I said that to my wife. I said, yeah, you're gonna be uncomfortable for like 2 seconds, but you never know where a conversation can take you just by saying hi to somebody. So put yourself in uncomfortable situations of growth.
Thank you to all three of you for just sharing very like tangible advice as far as when it comes to growth mindset. Because right, as you mentioned, Isabel, leveraging those sponsors, right? And then we have Chris mentioning how you have to just continuously invest in yourself and continue to grow. But then you, as someone mentioning, just kind of like always taking on those challenging opportunities to grow. It's super important. These are all very pivotal and key advice topics to kind of take in mind. And this is to all of our attendees today hearing us, right? These are all really valuable resources to elevate in any part of your career, not necessarily just tech, even just life, right? I think I can apply them to my own self as well, and my own personal journey and my career paths. But what I love so much too, and I think that what all of you are just also touching upon, is that overall, what I'm hearing too is that Autodesk is super invested in making sure that their employees feel like they're at the top of their game, which is, for me at least, it's super nice and like almost like refreshing to hear and see. Because right, it's really true. When you're working for large corporations, oftentimes you're just like a number, right, to number to the crew that's part of the organization, and oftentimes you're forgotten as far as like how are you being empowered in your career paths. But it sounds like Autodesk is completely opposite to that. And if anything, they're trying to push these values constantly, however you can, to elevate in your career. And that really ties back to my question that I have for all of you, as far as the values and the culture within Autodesk, and particularly to your own careers. And if you can touch a little bit to previously to working at Autodesk too, if you can, but just in general, right, placing those values that you're learning here at your organization right now, and how you've been able to apply them in moments of challenge. Kind of talking to Esteban's situation with his wife, right? Learning how to step into those challenging moments and using that courage inside of you to say, you know what, I want to take ownership of my career, right? Or even just trying to find ways to find that cultural strength to lean on an ally or a colleague to say, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know who to speak to on this. Like, has this been anything, that has happened in your career paths with Autodesk? I see Isabel trying to answer the question.
Sure, I can start. Let's see. Well, in terms of challenges that I've had, I guess, in other companies compared to what I have now, and at the beginning of my career, I can think about how self-conscious I was about my accent, right? So I was like, would never speak in a meeting because I was just like, no one is going to understand. So it took me many years to get that courage to actually start speaking up. And then when I started speaking up in meetings, then I started getting a lot of
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that, by the way, because I think that's a very common thread for a lot of women, especially Latinas, I would say too, is that we're often told, right? Either we are too loud and we speak too much our mind perspective, or we're told, why aren't you giving enough perspective? Right? Like it's almost like expected by us, like we need to be that way. But then if we are that way, it's kind of like diminished and like, no, that's too much. So just thank you for just sharing that, because I think, even from my own experience too, and I'm still fairly early in my career. So learning about these things and seeing other women going through is really inspiring. So just thank you for just being authentic, as you mentioned, right? It's super encouraged. I saw that you wanted to speak, Chris. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'll just touch like two values that we have, like adapt to a new role, like adapt, and then belonging in the spirit. So that goes with the whole feeling welcome and not feeling judged. We have a lot of opportunities at Autodesk, right, to succeed and contribute. So they're trying to pass the value that is just like, okay, we can create an environment where everyone, everywhere is excited to come to work and can fully contribute their talent in the workplace, no matter your background, no matter your color, no matter your language. And to Esteban's point, we do have a lot of interactions with the outside world of US, right? We have offices all over the place. We do have an opportunity to travel and to get to know the culture, and it is just not like towards the Latin that is the special. It is a special towards everybody, everywhere. And it helps in a way for you to adapt it to your new role, to adapt it to your team, to adapt it to how Autodesk works, to adapt to everything that goes with your job, and everything just makes it a huge difference, right? Being at the office, working with the best people, collaborating with our peers, and with different orgs, with different teams, with different races, completely different industries. In our case, at Autodesk, we're kind of separated by industry with no, judgment, and be able to apply for positions, quote unquote, and being able to achieve that, right? Not because you have in this X position or X race or X, gender, you're not going to be considered to those roles or anything like that. I feel very fortunately as well, because like I mentioned, my background, right, my work background is not that vast, because it might resemble to a lot of you guys that are starting or not. I graduated a while ago, and then I worked for a little bit in the tech industry, which is my my specialty. But I had to stop working because I became a mom and a wife, and I had to be all over the place. And as you all know, if you live in the United States and you have 3 kids, you either work or you work to pay for daycare. So with that, right, I feel very welcome at Autodesk because my career path was not just like, okay, graduated from college and then have internship and then be associate and then have a management position. I was all over the place. I moved to US. I had to learn English, still learning, um, and all of that, and then go back to school and then have my mind ready to restart from scratch. And even though with all of that, I felt welcome and Autodesk, because of all of the groups and the diverse community that we have, right? And that is, I just love this place. Can't say it enough. But yeah.
Well, kudos to you, by the way, by just embracing the fact that regardless of what any challenge you face, you always triumph over that. So, congratulations for just being that person for sure. Because it is very difficult and it's a very common story for a lot of women within any industry, particularly within tech, right? It's like when you take a break within your career, right? There's that issue of like ageism, right? Add the elements of like being a mother, right? Trying to find that work life balance. But being able to champion above that is super super crucial, and I commend you so much for that as well, and for sharing that to all of our audience members here today. Well, I see that we're almost wrapping up of time, and I do want to offer time to our audience to ask questions. So I'm going to wrap up with one final question. And I also just want to also encourage you to, I know we talked about this previously before jumping onto the meeting today. Feel encouraged just to answer this in your native language too. Just to pay homage to our Hispanic Heritage Month that we have here, being able to show up in your authentic self. I know for myself as Latina, my Spanish is not the best, pero con eso aprendo a hablar más, right? So I definitely would like to hear from all of you, really. What advice, qué consejo darás a alguien who wants to be part of the tech industry, right? Anybody who is interested in breaking into tech, or similar to you, Chris, right? Who has taken a pause but looking into coming back into the tech industry. What advice would you give to anybody starting into tech or pivoting into tech within their current career paths? I'm gonna turn to you, Esteban, just to kind of give some diversity in this perspective.
Muchas gracias. Mi consejo sería dos cosas. Buscar algo que te apasione, no simplemente irte en tech porque quiero estar en tech, pero busque algo que tenga que ver con un tema que te guste, que te vaya a gustar, que te motive a crecer. Porque como cualquier compañía, entre más grande la compañía, pues siempre va a haber cosas administrativas y cosas aburridas que conlleva el trabajo. Pero si está alineado a una meta que tienes, a ayudar a algo que te guste, va a ser mucho más fácil. Y cuando estás revisando esas compañías, también revises los valores de esa compañía. Hagan las preguntas sobre qué es lo que a esa compañía le importa, qué le importa a las personas. Encuentre personas que ya trabajan ahí, no solamente la persona que está haciendo el recruiting. Y eso ayuda bastante.
Absolutamente. Great advice. 2 key points there is to have a goal in mind as far as breaking into tech, right? What is your goal? Also to do your research, which is super, like, I think oftentimes we overlook that too, but absolutely do your research before applying to any company you're applying for. That way you know the goals and values of that organization. Thank you so much, Esteban, for that. Isabel, would you like to chime in?
I agree I agree with Esteban, and I think, it's very important, as he was saying, like, do your research and meet someone outside of the recruiting, because recruiting is always going to picture a really pretty picture of what the company is, but there has to be a match for both sides. Like, it's like dating, right? Like, you're committing your life to this company, and if they're not going to offer you what you need, then move on, right? Like, it's really hard to start a new job. So, spend your time into like finding a company that you really believe in and believe what they're like stand for, right? I think my only other advice would be like, as Chris was saying, like I had a similar situation. I started late. Like, don't be afraid to take a step back. You know, like careers are not linear. And sometimes you have to take a step back. Sometimes you have to start like a job that pays less, maybe an internship, you know, maybe something that is completely different what you're doing, but you'll just need that step on. You need to someone to open the door for you, and then you'll prove your value and you'll move up. So don't be afraid, you know, use that Latino blood to be, you know, persistent, and you'll get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And last but not least, Chris.
Sorry.
No worries.
So just to tag along of Esteban and Isabel, so if you do work in a company that has the, you know, tech segmentation, what you can do before you decide anything, it's maybe shadow that person to see if it's something that you like it, like to the point that Esteban just made it. Make sure you like it, right? Just don't like insert yourself in a field just because you think it's one thing, because it may be a totally different thing. The other thing you could do too is maybe volunteer for some tech companies. There's a lot of volunteer jobs out there that you can at least have an idea, or, you know, brought your expectations of everything. And besides that, just a power of network and learn the rules of the game, like, right? Try to, like, don't miss the opportunity to build your presence and learn their lingo, learn what it needs to be done as far as certifications, as far as skills, as far as everything. Get involved in open sources projects, subscribes for, I don't know, what they have now, the iPods, is that what it, podcast, iPods, podcast, follow tech support, you know, the experts in social media. That's all something that is available now that it was not like a few years ago. And it is just like, it may help you to have a better idea if it's what you wanted. And you can always learn one thing from, you know, each of those places that you go.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that you pointed out the fact that, right, we do have a lot of opportunities for resources now that were not available to us, and it's super important to optimize on that, right? Like you said, follow a podcast, right? Subscribe to some newsletters, or also subscribe to memberships at Latinas in Tech. You know, just shameless plug here, right? But there's so many ways you can connect to continue to foster your knowledge and your power, that you don't have to feel like you're behind in any source or way. But then thank you so much to all of you for just providing your perspective. Again, I highly thank you so much for just being part of this campaign that we have going on this month for Latinx Heritage Month, but most importantly for just showing up authentically and showing your perspectives. We greatly appreciate. I want to open up the floor for any questions before we wrap up today's discussion. Again, this is open for anybody here who wants to either go off mute or ask in the chat. We highly encourage it. And if we don't have any questions, if any of you panelists feel inclined to share your LinkedIn information, that would be really awesome. For anybody here who is attending us, I highly also encourage you to connect with any of our panelists on LinkedIn. That'd be really amazing. And I'll also include mine as well. But we'd love to open up the floor for any questions. No.
Hola, this is Colleen. I'll ask a question.
Absolutely.
It's kind of an interesting question, but was there a piece of advice that was like your worst piece of advice that you ever received in your career? Or that you learned from, maybe a mistake that you learned from?
I guess, you know, to the story that I was telling you before, like the advice of being like less passionate, you know, less myself and trying to fit in this culture and not being myself. I think that was probably the worst advice I got from my managers. Just try to fit in. Yeah.
Mm. I grew up half of my life in the States and half of my life in Costa Rica. So when I was younger and lived in the States, I think I felt a little bit more of I shouldn't speak Spanish, or I shouldn't seem as Latino as I am. And then I moved to Costa Rica and learned how proud and how great it is to be Latino. So to Isabel's point, like, take advantage of the fact that you're Latino. Enjoy the fact that you're Latino. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I go in the same tangent too. And as a mom, I know that unfortunately, right, some of the kids there are born here in US. There's still that stigma, at least a while back, that, okay, I don't want my kids to speak Spanish. I don't want my kids to speak Portuguese. I don't want anybody to judge, right? And to Isabel's point, it was just like, be quiet, girl. You do not have to be like all passionate and so loud like that. Let's just like fit in the square. And to Steban's point, it goes with, okay, why is not okay, right? To teach our kids to have this powerful knowledge of speaking more than one language, which is, it's so incredible. And I knew from the get-go, right, that I would not private my kids of that, but unfortunately it is the reality. At least it was when they're little, for some of the friends and all of that. So I think that was not necessarily the worst. It doesn't go on on Colleen's question, but it talks about both sides of Isabel and Esteban.
No, those are all very valuable lessons to learn, right? It's like you should never diminish your authentic self. If anything, that is your secret sauce or your superpower, right? Definitely agree. And I commend you all for, again, just showing up authentically to today's conversation. This is a safe space for all of us, but as Latinos, let's continue to champion and be as loud, as passionate, as outspoken as we need to be, because that's how we are able to occupy spaces that we have today. Thank you so much to all of us that are here today again. I also want to again quickly remind you all, and I think I was told that I wasn't sharing this previously, but I want to just quickly highlight again, if you did not get the chance to scan this QR code to learn more about what we're doing here at Latinas in Tech, I highly encourage you to do so. But also thank you too much to the Autodesk team today for sponsoring today's event. Again, please add in the chat. I'll have this open up for one more minute for us to share information, continue to network. But thank you to all of you who joined us this afternoon. Thank you, Isabel, Chris, and Esteban. Best of luck to all three of you. Again,
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's my pleasure.